on this episode of the Sorority Chat podcast.
I think it would kind of go back to that one horse racing painting that I was commissioned for. It was she wanted it very abstract, very colorful. And I kind of leaned into I used to paint very realistic, and it would drive me crazy because I wanted it to be exactly like a photo. And I still love that kind of style, but I thought that painting was kind of the one that pushed me to try something new and to be more abstract with my brush strokes and kind of just let them be there and not blend until it looks perfectly realistic.
Hey y'all, and welcome to Sorority Chat. I'm Liz Toombs, a designer and sorority alum who's obsessed with all things Greek life. My mission? To bring you real conversations, smart insights, and fun stories that help make sorority living even better. So grab your favorite beverage, get comfy, and let's chat. Welcome back to this week's episode. Joining me today is Kayla Nord, artist and entrepreneur from Lexington, Kentucky. What's up, Kayla?
Oh, not much. Just hanging out in my studio and trying to get some paintings done and do all the things.
Mama life, painting life, all the things post-vacation, right?
Yes, exactly.
How was Disney, by the way? Not everyone knows that you went, but how was it?
It was great. It was so fun. I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and they just absolutely loved it. It was magical. I definitely shed a tear as I was leaving the Magic Kingdom for the last day. So I know it's crazy. They just love it so much, and they're just so happy there. So it was fun.
Well, that's good. It sounds special, and that's what vacation should feel like when they're little, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It was exhausting though. I'm still trying to recover.
Well, I believe that fully because you're trying to move at a breakneck speed and pack in all you can on a trip like that.
Yes. 30,000 steps a day.
Well, oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah, I would be tired too.
Uh-huh.
Well, I'm excited to have you on. I have had the pleasure of knowing you for several years now, and I know your story and your path, and I want to talk about that and kind of talk about artwork and how it plays into your space, specifically around sorority houses and all of that good stuff.
Perfect.
So you started out as an art teacher and then ended up making the leap to become a full-time artist and work for yourself. What gave you the confidence to do that, and what brought you to that point to make that change?
Delusion. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, there has to be a fair amount of delusion, I think, when you go into business for yourself. I know I had some too.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I started out, like you said, as a art teacher, elementary. I taught kindergarten through 5th grade for 6 years. And I kind of always thought I'd have an art business on the side, but going into college in 2008, there's my age, there was no social media really at that point. I mean, there was Facebook, but there was, I thought the only path really to be an artist was just kind of through galleries and things like that. So that never really appealed to me. I didn't really feel like the stuffy gallery life was for me. So obviously I went the teaching route. And I was I'll just kind of do that on the side and have still full-time income as a teacher and be able to support myself. So kind of through college, I was doing commissions for friends and teachers and anybody that asked. And then as I got out of college, I got my full-time teaching job. And that's when I really started doing a lot more commissions and painting just random things for random people. And my name kind of got out there, and I started doing more horse racing type things. I did one really big, colorful horse racing piece that I absolutely loved. And that was kind of the moment I was hey, this is really fun. I could make a print out of this. I could sell this around Lexington fairly easily. So that one was kind of the turning point. I was maybe I could do this as a business. And I kind of started pushing it more. I got married in 2015. And right after that point, I switched my Instagram over to business more. I started focusing on just painting every day, even though I definitely wasn't, because I was an exhausted teacher after, a long day of having kids all day long and finger painting. But that's kind of when I really started focusing on trying to show everything I could do and paint. I started making prints at that point and just kind of like went for it, like made it a real business. At that point, I was obviously still teaching full time. It took about 2 years after that until I was like really making money from designing prints and doing markets, and I started doing live paintings. I was still doing commissions and things like that, and I was like exhausted, like trying to do both, like teach all day and then paint all night and keep up with orders and business and all those types of things. So it was 2018. I decided like I could probably quit and actually make way more money than teaching. And it just showed me like, I think it was early 2018, I was able to take like a day off of teaching. And in that one day, I was able to make more than like my month's salary at teaching.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is like a viable career. Like who knew? So that's kind of when I like ended up quitting that end of the year. Cause I was like, one day, what if I did 5 days a week or even 4? And so that's when I was kind of like, okay, this could actually be something. And that's when I took the leap and I didn't look back, and I miss like the kids and all that kind of stuff, but it's just making my own schedule is amazing. And now that I have my own kids, it's so much better. Clearly I can have the kiddo here with me at the studio and, still be able to kind of work, but not really, and not have to like be off or, all the things that when you have a real job.
You have a real job. You have many real jobs, actually. But yes, I understand what you're saying. You're not competing with a company wanting you somewhere at the same time that your children need you and trying to figure out how to balance that.
Yes.
So that was 2018. And then you built your studio just a couple years ago then? When did that open?
It's almost been 4 years now. It's 2020 we broke ground, and then 2021, June, it was finished. Yeah, so it's almost been 4 years, which it's like flown by so quick. But yeah, 2018, I was working out of my home studio. And then that like summer, I think I moved down to my parents' office. So they own a garden center landscape business and a wedding venue also. So I was kind of helping them with like marketing, doing some things on the side. So I was like, well, why don't I just like move my studio to the extra office room here? I'll have more space. I'll be able to actually go to work instead of being in my pajamas all day in my house. And it was like a good size room, but I grew out of it within like a month. And I was like, okay, we've got to figure something out. Either I need like rent a bigger space or build something. And that's when I kind of started talking to them, because our property is about 13 acres. And they have like a garden center, and there's space kind of obviously up here. They had to kind of move some things around for me, but we came to an agreement where I leased the land and we built the building, and it's just been amazing. I do a lot of like painting workshops with people. I know you've been to several. They're really fun. I just get to kind of step into that teacher role again and teach adults, which actually is probably harder than teaching children.
Oh, I believe it.
I think once you hit like 10 years old, you start to realize that you're not good at something and you get in your head. And that's what teaching small children is so fun, because they just are so creative and like go for it. But with adults and older children, you start to realize like, wait a second, I don't know what I'm doing and I'm scared. I don't know. So, but workshops are just a really fun way to kind of step back into that and have people in the studio. I usually have about 30 to 35 per workshop. So I get to run around and do all the teaching things again. But that was
that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
A big bonus of having a large studio now is that I can host that many people and have big events and do things like that. We used to, before I built the studio, I was doing them in our old tobacco barn on the here. And that was not temperature controlled. Could only do it a few, days a month or months a year, I guess. But yeah, so it's been a huge blessing to have a big studio and a retail space and place to paint and everything.
Yes. Yeah. No, like you said, I have taken some of your painting workshops. I have taken wreath making workshops at Springhouse Gardens on the property in that barn you were just talking about. So apparently I'm just a perpetual student and I love to come and make all the crafts. But I was thinking of you before we got on to record. I was in my guest bathroom and I had taken a ginger jar painting class from you. So we were painting on canvas. It's a ginger jar with the flowers in it. And oh my gosh, Kayla, I hated it so much. What I created at the end. So you talk about like an adult being like, oh, you're bad at this. And I was like, this is so ugly. And I just like, I kept moving it around and like putting it different places. A couple of times I threatened to throw it in my fire pit because I hated it and just like burn it. And I didn't. And now I'm so glad I didn't because it's hanging in that bathroom and I love it. And it's like super imperfect, but it's just really fun. And so I don't know, I think there's a lesson in there, right? Like to hang on to it and to try things. And you're always so good. The art teacher in you comes out, you'll come over and like help judge people's stuff so that it like polishes it at the end.
Yes, always have to come around. Sometimes it's harder than other times with different workshops, but I always try to at least tweak it a little bit so that you'll hang it and want to put it in your house.
Yes. That said, that was maybe not the best endorsement of your class. I love your classes. I've taken ornament painting. I've done winter landscapes, other landscapes. All of those things are actively in use. And it's just always fun to like take a friend and go to that class and just get to hang out and make stuff. My friends always make fun of me because like I want to make a candle or I want to go paint or like if we're going to do something, it's like a crafty activity. So you all should check out her classes live and recorded online because there's some really fun things that you can do.
Yes. Yeah. It's always good to kind of step out of your comfort zone and try something new and, give it a shot.
You're right. You're right. You're exactly right. So you have a really distinct artistic style. Like I would describe it as really vibrant. I think it's very fun, kind of playful in a way. So how did you develop that specific artistic style?
I think it would kind of go back to that one horse racing painting that I was commissioned for. It was she wanted it very abstract, very colorful. And I kind of leaned into like, I used to paint very realistic and it would drive me crazy because I wanted it to be like exactly like photo. And I still love that kind of style, but I feel like there's just so much more like, I don't know, it just makes you feel so much more when you can see the brushstrokes, you can see the colors, you can see just more like vibrancy in the painting. I think it really, it's just more fun and it's easier to decorate with. And I think it just brings like fun to the space really when you're decorating and hanging in your house. So that painting was kind of the one that pushed me to try something new and to be more abstract with my brushstrokes and kind of just let them be there and not like blend until it looks perfectly realistic. So that was kind of the stepping point in that. And I started experimenting more with that style and using colors that wouldn't really be there. Like when I painted, like a Kentucky landscape, I would put blue and pink. And even though the bluegrass is kind of blue, I would, go a little bit more blue than real. So, and I think it just is more fun and can add a lot more to a space.
I would fully agree. I feel like the more color there is, it's easier to build a space around it. Everything doesn't have to be matchy. I mean, you look outside, not everything is, one or two colors. There's so many colors and shades of things. And so I think that's what's fun about your artwork.
Yeah.
You've had some really cool opportunities, like collaborating with Anthropology. I think now you're partnering with Keeneland Race Course. How did those types of opportunities come about for you?
You really just trying to build relationships with different companies, especially Keeneland. That one, I guess we've been working together for several years now. Me and Keeneland started a partnership in 2020 when it was a COVID year. The spring meet got canceled, so they needed to add another meet in there. So they had to add it on like that summer, 2020. So it was a very strange year, very strange thing. There was no spectators at Keeneland, but they had me paint the poster for that summer meet, the one and only, which is pretty neat, kind of a historical moment, I guess. But after kind of working with them on that, we started doing wholesale. They started buying prints and selling them in their workshops and merchandise and all those amazing things, which is so fun to go see when I pop into Keeneland and see my artwork everywhere. It's pretty surreal.
It's super cool as someone who knows you to be like, oh, look, there's Kayla's stuff in the gift shop. Because, girl, you know I love a gift shop. And so anytime I'm at Keeneland, I'm going in and buying some kind of merch.
Yeah, they've got some good stuff.
Yeah, they really do. They have some very, very good things.
That's been an amazing partnership. And Anthropology, that was pretty early on. That was, I think, 2018, like right when I had quit. They just emailed me and I thought it was spam. And I was like, I think this is fake, but I'm going to respond. And it was real. They just had seen my globes on Instagram and had me do 3 styles. And then they mass produced them and they were all over United States, a little bit in Europe. And I think that's about it. But yeah, just crazy to walk into a store and like Anthropology in Atlanta and see my globes was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's wild. I like how you're like, oh yeah, they were all over like North America and Europe. Like, no big deal. That's huge. That's so cool. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So I've seen you've done a silk scarf collection as well, sort of collegiate fans. That seems to be working really well for you, and I see it on social media.
Yes, we have a whole brand new line of silk scarves. I'm actually wearing our Keeneland one right now. We have some wildcat scarves and some horse ones and just some more generic like horse racing ones where they're so fun to like style with different outfits, and especially for Keeneland, they're perfect for kind of dressing up or wearing in your hair or tying on your, bag or whatnot. So yeah, they're pretty fun.
Yeah, I love it. They're super cute. And I think it always is helpful to see how you style them as like a suggestion on your Instagram. Because sometimes I'm like, I love this scarf, but what do I do with it that I don't, I don't want to age myself or try to look like I'm being too young either. Like I want it to be appropriate and fashionable.
Exactly. Yeah, and there's a lot of different ways you can wear it. I mean, some of the young girls wear them as tops, which I'm not going to go for, but they can definitely
Me either.
Get done. But yeah, in your hair, on your bag, around your neck, like a bandana. The bandana thing is very big right now. But yeah, so many different ways to style them.
Yeah. So kind of coming back to artwork, you painted a trio of paintings for me at a house at Oklahoma State. I think it was 2020, 2021, somewhere in there. I commissioned you and I loved the piece. Like we talked about colors, you talked about the vibe in the house. And so the client was so thrilled with the finished product of the artwork. And I feel like art is something that is kind of not always accounted for in the budgets on the projects that I do. It's the last thing that the client wants to include. And so if the money dwindles down, they may or may not proceed with it. But I think, and my guess is you're going to agree, that it's such an integral part of the design and the feel of the space because it's so personal and it really can enhance everything else that is in the room.
Oh yeah, definitely. I actually, when I'm decorating my own home, which is easier for me because I can just paint whenever I want. But I always start with the artwork first before I even pick things. Because I want it all, like the art kind of brings everything together. So if I'm going to, I know I want to do like blues and greens, I'll paint an abstract and then pick pillows that will match for that. And then obviously, if you're limited on furniture and whatnot, you have to kind of go with what you already have. But I kind of design everything based on the artwork. And you can probably do it the reverse way too, if you're commissioning it. But if you have like a piece that you love, I would get the artwork first. And then if you're not commissioning, and then make everything match that, if that makes sense. If you're commissioning, you have more leeway, obviously, because you can, I already have these curtains, I have these pillows, I love this color scheme. Now make the artwork match all that. But depending on if you found something you already love or if you aren't commissioning, I guess it kind of depends on how you start. But
well, I mean, that's true. Yeah, it could be your starting point or it could be sort of like the cherry on top, depending on what, but you have to start somewhere. A lot of times I'll build a room from the rug up. Or if a client comes to me and says, this is my favorite piece of artwork, okay, then that's our jumping off point, kind of like what you're describing.
Yeah. But I think it definitely can just pull a room together and enhance everything.
I think so too. And I also think sometimes people get tripped up because they feel like the artwork has to exactly match the fabrics, the rugs, all of those things in there. And I don't think that's the case at all. I think it's so much more interesting, like we were talking a second ago, if it's just more collected and blended and you have pops here and there.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It just doesn't feel natural, I think, if everything is the same color or two colors. Yes. Yeah, you're right. Perfect.
You want to have mixing and matching of all the different textures and colors and styles, I guess.
So when it comes to sorority houses, how can art help create like a warm, welcoming space? Like if a housecore board is trying to zhuzh up their space, or what would your maybe top 2 tips be for them when they're selecting artwork?
Color, adding pops of colors, things like that. Making sure the artwork is the right size. I feel like that's a huge thing that I get tagged in a lot, and I'm like, oh, that should be a little bigger. But that, I mean, it just makes such a huge difference. If your space is smaller, you can make the artwork can make it feel bigger or feel cozier. If your space is huge, it can make space feel cozier. But yeah, just getting, warmth and color added to a space, it can just completely change it. Yeah, it's important for sure.
Yes. I mean, that's really good advice. Size and scale. I think that all the time. Like if you have a big wall, and it's hard if you're not in the creative space like you and I are, for folks to envision how it's going to look up on the wall. And so I think that's why it's nice to get some help or to search online and kind of do some research before you commit to a piece of art at a certain size, because it could really flop if it's not correct.
Yes. And hanging it the correct spacing from your furniture or on the wall. Oh my goodness. That is like, I so a full course about that.
I want to hear, what is your advice on that? And then I'll kind of tell you what I usually advise too.
Well, I guess it kind of depends on if you're hanging it over furniture, if you're hanging it, and there's rules for all the different inches. And I usually just eyeball it. So I don't know like the correct spacing wise, but yeah, there's definitely an art to hanging and placement and what you're putting it over. And yes, all the things.
There is. You are right. I too eyeball it, but I think for just the average person, if you're not doing it all the time, saying hanging at eye level, I'm using that in quotations, is not accurate, because if you are a 6-foot person, your eye level is very different than a 5'2" person. So you're going to have a very different vibe. And sometimes those people are in the same household. So then, it just, everything feels off. So what I usually tell people is the center of the artwork, start with placing the center of it about 60 inches from the floor. And let's take a look and see, does that feel too high, too low? Is that achieving what you want? And then you can move it up and down from there, which is more of like the eyeballing method you and I are talking about.
Yes.
And then to your point about the furniture, it needs to belong to the furniture, the piece of artwork, not to the ceiling. And what I mean by that is if it's hung too high, it belongs to the ceiling, and the ceiling doesn't need it. You need it lower so it becomes like a vignette and like a focal point with the furniture, right?
Absolutely. I always recommend, especially like when people are commissioning art and they're trying to figure out sizing, or even just, we do like large frame prints and canvases and things like that. I always tell them to get painter's tape and tape out the final dimensions where they're going to put it, just so you can get kind of a feel for sizing, spacing, what it's going to look like above your piece of furniture or just on the wall. Because I think that, like, I'm just a very visual person in general, and seeing that taped dimensions on the wall can help so much with deciding if you need to go bigger, if you need to have 2 next to each other, if you need to go 3 because it's a huge wall, or even just like if you're doing smaller things, it helps with that too, if you're not an interior designer and a decorator.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's actually a very good point, because that tape is easily removed. You can kind of walk away from it, come back to it, and just see it in passing to make sure that you like how it's all shaping up for you, because it's a lot of work to hang artwork and hang it correctly. And if you are hanging multiple pieces and you don't want your walls to look like Swiss cheese if you're not happy with the placement. And so the old adage, measure twice, cut once, or hang once, is definitely applicable here.
Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah, you don't want to punch holes in your wall.
No. I mean, again, if you're super handy, great, you can putty them, but the average person does not want to be spackling their walls and touching up paint and, all the things. So,
Yes.
So a bunch of our listeners are current college students or maybe young alumni. And so they are decorating their dorm spaces, off-campus houses, their first living arrangement after college. Like, what is your best budget artwork advice for them as they're trying to decorate and personalize those spaces?
Yeah, I think obviously prints are the way to go for that because you can get a beautiful piece of artwork. For ours range from 18 to like 66, I believe, for the biggest one. And obviously you have to frame, but there's so many like great budget framing options you can find, like Target, Amazon, Hobby Lobby. You can just buy the pre-made frame and plop it in there, and you have a beautiful custom piece of artwork that you can put in your space. We do a lot of pairs and like triptychs, if you will. So it makes it easy to decorate a bigger space, and it really just makes, I feel like, it easier to decorate. Like I love doing like two painting or prints stacked together, or doing two next to each other, kind of offset a little bit depending on where you're decorating. I think it just helps a lot to have ones that were painted together. They kind of go together. They can pair well, and it just like makes your space feel more chic and like put together. So it's pretty simple. We try and help a lot too, like in shop. And if you message me or email me, we usually can have, like, if you send a picture of your space, we can kind of recommend something. And yeah, it just makes it easier. We kind of know what goes well together and what would bring your space together and your colors and things like that.
I saw just a couple days ago, actually, you had posted a little DIY frame hack, and you had used a couple of frames from Hobby Lobby, and then you just painted them, and it gave them an entirely new look. And then when you put the artwork in it, it was an awesome transformation. So, yeah. I mean, that's a really good tip.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we just spray painted them with like a French blue color, and I really want to do a like sage green one. I think that would be really cute because a lot of my prints have kind of that like green color, and yeah, the sage green is my favorite right now. But yeah, it's super easy to like make very affordable but very chic, frames and artwork these days. I feel like there's so much on Pinterest and on Instagram and Reels, and there's so many good ideas out there to be able to create something that you're like really proud of and can be pretty custom for your space for cheap.
Yeah. I mean, as long as you don't mind a little elbow grease, or you can get in there and try it, I think they're awesome solutions. I just, it wasn't a frame, but I just changed the finish of my light fixtures in the kitchen recently. It was a product. It was a gold color from Rub and Buff, and you literally just, have you ever used it?
Yeah. We've done some of our like candles on different pieces of furniture and stuff. Yeah, you just rub it on there, and it can totally change the whole piece of furniture, really, just from changing the handles and the hardware and everything.
Yeah, honestly, it took me 15 minutes, and the light fixtures look brand new. They didn't even have to come off the ceiling. And I was like, great, that probably just saved me several $100s because I'm not wanting to change out the fixture itself. So it's good to know you've used it on like furniture hardware, because I've been slightly reluctant. I didn't know if it would maybe chip or come off.
Eventually, yeah. I think it's been pretty fun. I think I've had it touched up like once or twice, but it's pretty cool. Pretty good stuff.
Yeah, no, that's super cool. If you could go back to your younger self, like college Kayla, early teaching Kayla, what's a piece of advice that you'd give yourself about becoming an artist?
I wish I would have started sooner and jumped in faster. Oh. I think I was very like not scared, but just like, oh, I can't make money doing this, or I was very focused on teaching, which was good because I always tell anyone that wants to be an artist or wants to like try to do this as a full-time career, to have a full-time career first and then start on the side, so there's not any pressure to like make ends meet right away, because that's when I think you lose the joy of like what you're doing, because it's very scary and you're like just constantly trying to sell when if you just let it kind of happen organically, it's way better, I believe. Just having that like whole like salary and benefits and retirement that I was able to like feel confident enough to not have to like make money right away. I think that helped a lot. But yeah, I wish I would have started sooner, like right when I graduated would have been pretty cool. And taken Instagram more seriously in like 2012, because that's when people like were skyrocketing and all that kind of stuff. But again, I was like nervous and I didn't want to be the weird like one. All my friends made fun of me anyway. Even in 2015, I was like trying to like make it happen, you know, and they're like, oh, cool. Like, so just not listen to what people closest to me, you know, kind of making fun of me, which they love me. It was fine. They meant well, but it was, you know, you just always feel kind of silly putting yourself out there. And I wish I would have kind of not listened even more and jumped in sooner, I guess.
It's hard to block out that noise, even when it's joking and when you are young and don't have experience. You know, you do the best you can. Yeah. I appreciate you saying that about the losing the joy in the creativity and the artwork if you're too focused on the financials and the earnings and all of that. Because I definitely feel like that's how I built my business, was I focused on the joy and the connections, and then the money followed. And, you know, I was fortunate in that way. And then now I'm sort of exploring some new things with surface pattern design. So creating patterns for like wallpaper or textiles or other things. And the teacher there is saying the same kind of thing. Like, just let it happen. Like, don't force it. Think of the ideas and the process more than that end product. And so that totally jives with what you're saying. And I think that's really good advice.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It'll all follow if you kind of just let it happen and enjoy the process, because that's the best part, really.
It is. It's the whole concept of, you know, it's the journey, not the destination. Or I really love the band Old Dominion, and I love their line of the one song that says, "Chase after the dream, don't chase after the money." And I just think it rings very true.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So what's next for you? Any exciting projects or collaborations or anything you can talk about?
Right now I'm just about to have baby number 3.
That's what I was going to say. That's a big milestone.
Trying to survive 3 boys. No, we're not anything huge right now. I do plan to do another Italy painting retreat, probably 2027. So I'm going to give myself a few years. We did one in 2019, then another one in 2023, where that one was large. I took 30-ish people over to Italy to paint, and my 2 kids. One was 9 months old and 3 at the time. So that was an undertaking for sure. And yes, I'm thinking we'll do one more year in between and then try and go in 2027 and do a whole nother big travel retreat for a week or 2, and hopefully take a lot of lovely people to come and paint with me in Italy.
That's really cool. I want to come. I've followed you through both of those excursions and just wasn't able to make it work, but I would love to get there sometime. I think it could be so cool to paint in Italy and just have that experience. And you studied in Italy at one point, and that's kind of what prompted the love for having these workshops there, right?
Yes. So I studied my junior year in Florence, and I was in a very small school. There's only 5 of us in the school. So yes, I know, it was very small. When I started kind of going out on my own teaching workshops, and when I went full time, they actually contacted me and asked if I would like to bring people over and use my studio that I worked in. And so that's kind of how that all started. So my first one was much smaller than the second, because we just only had room for 10 people in the thing, and it kind of got my feet wet. I was like the artist, the travel agent, everything all in one. It was stressful. I didn't have kids then, so that made it all easier. But yeah, that one was amazing. It was so much fun, and I loved getting to work with my professors again, and I was the teacher this time, so that was pretty neat. But yeah, definitely would love to do that again eventually. And yeah, just always, we're working on doing wholesale with different people across the country. We did it, the Atlanta market a couple years ago. We might do that again, just to kind of get out there and meet, boutique owners and people like that, because wholesale is a big revenue stream for us. So trying to get in more places across the country and go more nationwide is kind of always a goal, I guess.
Well, I love that. It sounds like lots of fun things on the horizon.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Where can people find your work and follow along with your journey of everything you have happening?
So my website is just KaylaWeberArt.com, and it's Weber with one B. That always kind of trips people up. But and then Instagram, Kayla Weber Art, and on Facebook it's just Kayla Weber Art. So KaylaWeberArt. Those are probably the best place. I am on TikTok now. I'm trying to work on
that's exciting.
Another platform to have to worry about, but we're on there, on Instagram and Facebook and all the places. I can't keep up.
I know it is a lot to manage. I gave up Facebook and I focus on Instagram and TikTok, and it's still a lot to manage, but it's nice to have one less platform, I guess. I don't know if it makes a difference.
It's a lot. It's a whole job in itself for sure.
Yeah, you're right. Well, Kayla, thank you for coming on the show. We will have all of those links that you talked about in the show notes for today, so anybody listening can easily connect with you. But it was great, as always, to see you and to talk with you, and thanks for your time.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me. Always good to see you.
Welcome to Liz's House Hot Takes. This is where I take the lessons I've learned over the last 16 years of designing Greek houses and offer you my pro tips. Does your house have a lot of bookshelves or built-ins that you're not sure how to fill? My tip is to buy groups of books with matching spine colors, and then you can stack them on top of each other or line them up on the shelves to create that aesthetic vibe that matches your organization's brand colors or the color scheme in that specific room. It is an inexpensive way to get a very high-end designer look. Thanks for listening to another House Hot Take. For more inspiration, check out the PDR Interiors Instagram or TikTok. I'm Liz Toombs, and this is the Sorority Chat podcast. Catch you next time. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're listening on a podcast platform, make sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode. And if you got something out of today's conversation, we'd love for you to leave us a 5-star review. It helps us reach more listeners just like you. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to check out this video right here or this one over here. And don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps us out. On that note, I'm Liz Toombs with Sorority Chat, and I'll see you on the next one. This podcast is produced by Collier Landry for Don't Touch My Radio. Copyright Liz Toombs.